Yes, well, okay. Collaborative research, Bournemouth University of Oslo, current status and future plans. So what I want to have, could we use the Bible systems model to aid collaborative research is the question started here. And the idea, if you're going from the top down, if we associate the System 5, the purpose of with the CIS book we have a talk about writing, System 4, the vision, using the evidence research triangle, System 3, the control unit, digital meetings and email exchange, System 2, coordination matrix, and System 1, the individual task, the writing, the teaching, the discussions, the things we try to produce something in collaboration. So this is a diagram. So okay, if we start with the book, I think this could be a way of trying to define the purpose of our research, to formulate the purpose of our research. The purpose of the book should correspond with the purpose of the collaboration. And things we have looked into is the critical systems thinking, community organizational research, total quality management, black belt leadership, and integrated systems pedagogy. But what we need to do is we need to clarify values and policies that drive our research. And that's why I have included here the Barrel matrix, the Barrel-Morgan matrix, where we have the critical system thinking on the left, upper left quadrant, called radical humanist paradigm, and which has been more our focus, trying to focus more on community operational research in the tradition of how Jonathan Rosenhead wrote about this, defined this, and wrote about this in the late 1980s, the radical structuralism, the call for revolution, systemic reform, structural equity, and so on, which was a central idea in the way we formulate our critical systems intervention methodology. That could be interesting, that we could perhaps turn into a book after I've written, after done a sufficient amount of research and published papers on this. So the vision, System 4, the evidence research model, and this is something I liked very much. That you introduced. At the base of the triangle, we have our philosophical foundations, which are, as I just said, critical system thinking and community organizational research. And then we want to move up from that basis towards the apex, where we define the collaborative research. And following these two legs at the same time, on the one side we have the PhD research. Both you and I are committed to PhD research, and on the left side we have the CST, or critical system thinking specific research. And here we do like unlike the previous matrix, we do more like Jackson, who defines critical system thinking to covering both the humanistic radicalism and the structural radicalism, radical humanism. The vision. And so how do we control the progress and make sure it moves in the right direction? Well, we have had, but these are at least some of the meetings we have. Those are the meetings I've been managed to identify going through the logs. We may have had more than those, but at least those are. So last time we looked at my PhD proposal. The time before that we looked at your PhD presentation, and prior to that we had gone through various papers and presentations and conferences and things like that. We started with my AIM study in July 2023. That's how our collaboration started. That was that system, and then we had the coordination. So what one thing that I had some good experience with is to use these Kanban boards. This is a coordination method from Total Quality Management, specifically in the Japanese version of TQM called company-wide quality control, or sometimes called lean management. So this is just a way of listing up. We have the backlog, like the TQM lecture for the autumn. We have the ISS paper. We haven't started doing that yet. We have the CST overview paper. We have the CSI book. Those are unstarted projects. And then we have projects running, like your PhD project, the internal control book that I'm writing that at this very moment. That is my prime focus at the moment. We have the SPA. I submitted this SPA paper to, a soft systems paper. I drafted a paper and got the abstract accepted by Frank Stowen for the special issue of Systemic Practice and Action Research. And then we have the ISP conference paper that is in development. We have the set scores paper in development. We have the psychocybernetics paper that should have been submitted, but I haven't been able to do the final check on it. And the same goes with the TQM Fact Fiction paper, which should be submitted as soon as possible. Then I have a game philosophy paper I'm writing, and I have the AIM paper that I mentioned on the previous slide, which was written a long time ago but has not been submitted to Systemist yet. Then we have the papers that are in the waiting, and that is the TQM Dead Alive paper that was submitted to Systemist in February last year. That's like 14 or 15 months ago, and we haven't heard anything from that. So that's I'm not so impressed. But okay, I understand Christine has lots of things to do, so if it gets accepted and published, then it's not a problem. Then I have the PhD project I talked about last time that was submitted. I have not heard anything yet, so I'm not so. I don't think that will work out as I hope for. Actually, well, so I will tell you more about that later when I get response, but I'm not so positive. And then I'm writing almost completed a book called Networks of Meaning, which has to do with this. It has to do with bullying and harassment at the workplace. It's a sort of biographical research study talking about the kind of problems that I think are not too unexpected, perhaps, if you do try to implement the TQM according to these principles we are focusing on, like liberation, like workplace democracy, and because of course we have in organizations there are people who are react very negatively to that sort of thing, and it's very easy to get scapegoated, as I feel I got, but it is also an opportunity for writing a book about it. So this book is in the waiting because I'm waiting for this game philosophy paper that is part of it. I want to use it as an appendix. And then we have the CSI paper that we wrote for the VOSC conference. Yeah. I hope that we will get some feedback soon, that the book, we're just waiting for the book to get published, I think. Okay, and then we have system 1. If we look in, because this was the coordination of these things, and then we have the individual works and what you have to focus on each of those. for this presentation, I wanted to focus specifically on this ISS paper, because, as pointed out in red here, the abstract deadline is the 15th of March, which is 3 weeks from now. So that's a very short time, even for writing an abstract, I would say, and I have not been able to look at it at all because I've been heads and heels over working on other things like the PhD proposal and the internal control book. And but if you focus on this ISS paper, what kind of so we could ask the question: what kind of systems research is ISS looking for? The International Society for Systems Science. This is the society that started everything in a way. This is the legacy of the Bertalanffy conferences, journals and conferences from the mid 50s, and they have been running along. But it's not the same. It's interesting, but we can discuss more about that. How we look at general systems thinking in relation to what we have looked at in relation to our perspective, or our focus on critical systems thinking, because there are of course something that I have thought a bit about this general system. The idea in general system is to use systems theory for comparing, contrasting very different types of systems by just acknowledging that there are systems, and you have a sort of similar thing in critical systems, in the multi-methodology approach within critical system thinking, where we use very different types of systems methodologies based on different having different philosophical foundations, making them almost incommensurable in a way, but still there are ways of trying to make them match. So that is what systems research is ISS looking for, and the other question is: are there strategic advantages of aligning with ISS? Because they're having this conference in Birmingham, and you told me that you believe that it will be possible for you to get funded for presenting something we might submit to something. If we manage to get something successfully submitted to the conference, you should be able to present it on our behalf, which I would be very grateful for, of course, very, very thankful for. So okay, so let's look a little bit at this. This is the 69th annual meeting of the International Society for Systems Science. And this year it's being hosted by Birmingham Leadership Institute at the University of Birmingham. And one of those people that I noticed, just trying to look at interesting possibilities for alignment and for further collaboration, is Dr. Juanita Bernal. It says here is a systems thinker, engineer. She's one of the two professionals, two staff members representing the conference, leading one of the leading the stream called Systemic Leadership, Birmingham Leadership Institute, and also one of the two people hosting the conference, or what do you call it? Yes. So Dr. Juanita Bernal is a systems thinker, engineer, and researcher whose work focuses on the application of systems thinking to enable social change and support community-led initiatives. Her practice draws on critical system thinking and multi-methodological approaches with an emphasis on participation, learning, and transformation in complex social systems. In other words, this is exactly the same kind of research we are doing or have been pushing with our CSI paper, and what would be a natural theme in a follow-up for our follow-up paper if we were to submit something for this conference. And if we were to do that, then we probably have to look at the different streams. The most natural stream is this one called systemic leadership, which is something we have already discussed to some extent. And I just want to read this. Systemic leadership. This stream focuses on the nature of systemic leadership in theory and practice. While it's not well defined, more systemic approaches to leadership emphasize that leadership is a practice, something we do, rather than a position, something that we have because of our seniority. They foreground the flexibility and learning essential to respond to dynamic and unpredictable contexts and the adaptive challenges that complexity opens up. Looked at this way, leadership emerges as an inherently relational and shared activity that is rooted in day-to-day experiences and encompasses embodiment and emotion. It can also be enhanced by the use of systems approaches to decision making, and leadership comes to be seen as a system of capabilities and activities. So, and you even coined this before we had read Jackson, you came up with the idea of creating something called CSL, Critical Systems Leadership. Now it turned out that Jackson had already copyrighted that term, or at least had used that term, but that is not the problem. On the other hand, it could be an advantage, but then we could look at our interpretation of critical systems leadership and present that, which would be very fit for something like this. But just before there are also alternatives. I don't think the alternatives are very relevant, but they're worth mentioning. I don't know, it was like 10 or 11 different tracks, but these three have at least some relevance for us. The first one was education and knowledge sharing. Education and knowledge sharing explore the processes, systems, and technologies that facilitate learning, skill development, and dissemination of information across communities and generations. This theme highlights innovation in pedagogy, digital transformation, and strategies for lifelong learning in an increasingly interconnected world. So this is where we could have presented something like the integrated systems pedagogy paper, which is already is fairly developed, although that it was intended, of course, for the UKSS conference later this year. But it could be a possibility to present it here, or an early version of that paper here, and the full version later on. But this was an alternative. Another one is policy and governance. Policy and governance involve frameworks, regulations, decision-making processes that guide institutions, organizations, and societies in achieving collective goals. This theme explores how governance structures can adapt to complexity, foster collaboration, and drive systemic change. This is also something we have written about in that was the TQM governance and leadership paper that was written with the intent of being submitted for Kubernetes, but and we also talked about follow-up papers for that one, and here we could have had an opportunity for writing a follow-up and testing it on this, testing it here. And the third opportunity is shared theoretical foundations. Shared theoretical foundations examine the core principles, concepts, and frameworks that underpin System science and transdisciplinary collaboration across diverse fields. This theme aims to establish common ground for integration, alignment, and collective advancement in systemic thinking. So this would have been perhaps somewhat relevant for my PhD thesis proposal that I mentioned last time, like the where we could contrasting what I presented as Bas van Fraasen's philosophy, using that as a basis for systems research, in contrast with how John Mingus have been using critical realism, which is a philosophy I'm very critical of, and also written some critical papers on that. But although these are opportunities, at the moment I still think that the best opportunity is the first one, because it not only is it a possibility for presenting, for working, for continuing in the direction of the book we have been talking about, but it also it creates a possibility for connecting with people, with the community at in Birmingham, people who are interested in the same things as us. And we have been talking about connecting, joining up with the Hull community to look at what their latest research on community operation research and critical system thinking. But if they're also working on such issues in Birmingham, that could also be interesting. At least they could be very interesting to hear if you could, on our behalf, have some discussions with this lady or other people who are interested, Dr. Juanita Bernal and other people who are interested in things like that. So what I hope could be a possibility is to submit an update of the WASC paper. We have already spoken about how we wanted to update that. We have talked about and your idea was to make a minimal change, almost a minimal change in the existing paper, which was called a new methodology in support of critical system thinking, critical systems intervention, by focusing, by taking advantage of the feedback we got, and then focus on the difference between critical systems intervention and critical systems practice, referring to the to Mike Jackson's latest version of critical systems intervention. And perhaps if we were to present something like that, perhaps not only would we get feedback from people like Ms. Bernal, but Dr. Bernal, but also perhaps Jackson or other people from Hull or others interested in critical systems leadership might be interested, and you could engage in a debate on critical systems leadership, perhaps talking a little bit about black belt leadership and things, and those sort of things, and our critical systems intervention approach, and to see how that lands. So this was my invitation for my introduction for this meeting, and trying to stimulate a little bit of debate between us.